Hello and welcome to lesson number 4, Respect, Honour and Integrity. Honour and integrity are important aspects of male character. Men respect other honest men of honour and integrity. If you want to make yourself attractive to a quality man, then you are very well advised to show due respect to honest men of honour and integrity. This is the subject of today's lesson. Western women do not show due respect for honest men of honour and integrity today. I'm going to take you through my example, and then at the end I'm going to say the same thing I'm saying here at the start. Western women are very well advised to show due and earned respect to honest men of honour and integrity. In Western culture, women are not expected to have honour and they are not expected to have any integrity. Indeed, the lack of integrity of women is so widely accepted and expected that there is a saying, "It is a woman's prerogative to change her mind." For some reason, the feminists and the women who claim they want to be treated like men and treated as equals of men have never discussed the concepts of honour and integrity, and the complete lack thereof in women in Western cultures. I mean to say, Western women openly support perjury in the 99.9% plus. The whole concept of having any honour or having any integrity is a non-starter. You cannot have honour or integrity if you support and condone perjury. It is simply not possible. So this lesson is to teach you a little bit about honour and integrity. Not that I expect any Western women to actually pursue the path of gaining these things for herself, just that you understand it. I personally question whether it is even possible for women to set aside their culturally accepted advantage of "it is a woman's prerogative to change her mind" to take up the standard of men, which is "a man's word is his bond." We all know that a man's word is his bond. We all know that for all of history, men have marched off to wars and died because they have given their word to fight to the death to defend their women and children. The culture of "a man's word is his bond" is very deeply embedded into Western cultures, and men are very heavily sanctioned culturally if they are caught breaking their word. Indeed, in my personal life, I will not deal with a man who has broken his word to me and does not admit it, repent, make remedy, and give me his word he will never do so again. Across my lifetime, I have severed numerous relationships with men who have broken their word to me or acted dishonestly with me, one being my own father. I have also published the fact that they did this quite widely at the time they did such. And again, I've published the fact that my father betrayed me. I do not sever relationships with women who break their word to me because that's normal for women. We do not hold women to the same standard because they are not capable of meeting that standard. My argument: if women were capable of being their word, then you wouldn't need to have "it's a woman's prerogative to change her mind," right? So we do not punish dogs for barking because that is what dogs do. We do not punish women for lack of integrity because that is what women do. They lack integrity. And you can be upset at that all you like, but you can't show me women who have integrity. Now, in case you claim to be offended by me saying that women lack integrity in the West, and this is deeply culturally embedded, let me give you an example from Jennifer as to "it is a woman's prerogative to change her mind." And as you read this, you would do well to remember that her actions are 100% supported by other women. There are no other women in the West who have condemned her for these actions, not even one. Yet women condemn men who lack integrity very vocally. So now I'm going to take you through cases where I maintained my integrity and where Jennifer didn't maintain hers, and just put it out there. This is how you treat people. I'm hated, I'm slandered, I'm criminally victimized by women in the West, and Jennifer is lauded and praised and supported. Okay? And we are presenting this to the younger men. So in the late 80s and early 90s, Jennifer and I discussed what we wanted to do in order to give her children the best opportunities in life. One of the things we decided that was very important was to get them to a better high school than the one near where we lived in Seven Hills in Sydney. We knew we could not afford a private school for her children, but we could move into a school zone for a better school. We could do that. As it turned out, the high school in Pennant Hills had a very good reputation, and many students from there were able to make it into university. As a bonus, it was not far from IBM's head office, and we were both working for IBM at the time. We agreed that if it was at all possible, we would do our best to finish renovating our first house and seeing if we could trade up to get into the school area for Pennant Hills High School. We felt this was the best thing we could do for Kristen and Jared. As it happened, we were able to make that move by finding a very run-down house in a very good street. I could renovate the house to make it livable, and we could improve the house over time. The house we bought was in very poor condition, and we could afford it because no one else would buy it because of its very poor condition. It's buy the worst house in the best street story. Of course, as we were discussing buying this house so her children could go to the best school we could afford to get them into, I emphasized to Jennifer that it was mandatory that she would keep working. We were borrowing money that required 30% of our combined income to pay the mortgage. I told her straight out that if she wanted her children to go to Pennant Hills High School, she had to keep working to pay the mortgage, and that I would never be able to earn enough money for her to stop working, and I made this very clear to her. We duly moved in February 1992, and Joshua made his entrance to the world in May 93 as planned. We were now settled. We were both working for IBM. We both had great career prospects, even though IBM was going through a very serious period of change at that time. We had our full quota of children, 4. We had our second house, which was the house we planned to live in until the smaller children were out of high school. We had, quote, made it, unquote, from living in country Australia to securing our house, our mortgage, our jobs, our careers, so that we could now settle down and raise our children in relative comfort. Certainly we were better off than 95% plus of other people. The years from 1984, when we first started dating, to 1994, when Joshua was 1 year old, were tough years. We had both worked long and hard to get to this position. I now felt that we were quite secure in our futures. There were issues at IBM, but I felt that IBM being so massive would come through okay. I had managed to keep my job when 50% of my peers had lost their jobs over the last few years, so I had felt that I had made the cut during the recession, and now that things were turning for the better, I was hoping IBM would improve as a place to work. Perhaps it would return to the good old days of the 80s, perhaps not. But I was waiting to see what happened. And then in April 94, Jennifer drops the bombshell. She decided unilaterally that she would refuse to go to work. I was shocked, to say the least. She simply, flatly refused to go to work. In divorce, she claimed, "It was your fault I did not go to work. You should have made me go to work." I pointed out to her that during our entire marriage, her mantra was, "You can't make me do anything." And here you are blaming me for not making you go to work. And what was I supposed to do? Whip you like a donkey? The fact is that you have to want to go to work, and that is up to you. No one can make anyone else work. That is called slavery, and that is not allowed. You chose not to go to work, and you gave me no say in the matter, and that was your responsibility, not mine. Now, what was her excuse when she refused to go to work? Her excuse was, "Well, I never said I would pay the mortgage. I never said I would pay the mortgage." I said to her, "You signed the mortgage contract. That is a contract. Your signature on that contract says that you agreed to pay the mortgage." She was having none of it. She claimed, "I never said that I would pay the mortgage, and so I did not have to pay it. That is your problem now. You have to pay the mortgage. I'm going to stay home and raise the children." This is called empowerment. The empowerment to sign a mortgage contract and then refuse to work to pay it. And this attitude was 100% supported by all the women around her. And that is the point I want to make, dear reader or listener. The fact that Jennifer signed a mortgage contract and then refused to pay it, claiming, "I never gave my word to pay the mortgage," is supported by 100% of women, is the point I want to make. Since this is a fact, none of those women who supported her position can be said to support the notion that women are to have integrity in their society. When a woman can sign a contract and not be held accountable for her signature on a contract, shows you that women lack integrity, and lack of integrity is totally socially acceptable. Now let us fast forward to 2002. Jennifer turned nasty in 1993, right after Joshua arrived, refusing to go to work and putting the full burden on my shoulders to pay for a family of 6 in Sydney caused me a great deal of stress, and my health was badly affected. By 2002, I had had enough. 8 years of being abused and overworked had taken its toll, and I was ready to divorce her. I told her in April 2002 that I was going to finish the contract I was working on in June 2002, and then I would return to Dublin, sort out the house and a few things we owned in Ireland, and then return to Australia and divorce. I told her that her behaviour towards me was just so disgraceful that I simply could not tolerate it anymore. I was fed up with her, and there was no going back. I told her that no amount of begging me to take her back again was going to work. I told her that she had her chances, and she had refused to reform her behaviour, even though she was given 7 more years than she might rightly deserve. I made it clear I loved her, but it was very clear to me that she did not love me and did not care for me as a human being. I told her that she treated our pets better than she treated me, and I did not sign up for such disgraceful behaviour from my wife. We had arranged to take a long holiday in Europe from July to September in 2002 with the proceeds of the work I'd been doing. I told her I was cancelling the holiday and we would be returning to Australia as soon as was possible once I had completed my contract. Of course, the next thing was her usual endless begging me to take her back. I told her that I had taken her back when she had begged me to do so in 1995. She had begged me again to take her back in 1997 after she had me assaulted and injured by the police by lying to them to get them to come and arrest me. Now she was begging me again, and I told her no. I was sick to death of her behaviour, and I was determined to divorce her. What I did not realise was that she had told all her friends about how she was going on this holiday, and her real concern was that she was losing face to her friends with the holiday being cancelled. This is what it turned out to be. So instead of begging me to take her back, she changed tack and begged me to take her on the holiday instead, so she wouldn't lose face to her friends. She begged me to at least come to the holiday and let her talk to me for those 12 weeks, and maybe with 12 weeks of being together solidly, she might be able to change my mind and take her back. I relented and decided that we would have the holiday because I would like to see more of Europe and I might never be here again, and we had plenty of money to take the holiday. I did not relish the prospect of being with her for 12 weeks straight, having decided to divorce her, but since I did still love her, I figured I could tolerate her company for 12 more weeks. You know, it had been 15 years, what's 12 more weeks kind of thing. So for the holiday we drove all the way out from Dublin to Vienna, then up to Stockholm, across to Oslo, to Trondheim, then to Bergen in Norway, then back across to Scotland, and finally to Belfast and back to Dublin. It was about 10,000 kilometres all up over the 12 weeks. We also took the car ferries across the obvious seas for that trip. From the 12 weeks, we were alone for 8 weeks. 8 weeks of them. Kristen was taking care of the smaller children, and she flew over to Stockholm with the smaller children and joined us there. The smaller children were with us for 4 weeks in Stockholm and on Gotland, an island in the Baltic Sea off the Swedish coast. And just with that, we will take a short word from one of our sponsors. And thank you very much for returning. For those 8 weeks of holiday, Jennifer begged and begged me to take her back. I said no and asked her to please stop begging me because it was only irritating me. I told her to enjoy her holiday with me because this would be the last time we would be together and we might never have this opportunity again. In other words, shut up and enjoy yourself and stop irritating me on my holiday, or I will quit this holiday now and return home. She decided to behave herself and act properly towards me, but I was obviously not going to be fooled anymore by her lies and more of her begging. The shrew she had become was clear to me, and it was time to leave. There was simply nothing else to be done. She was not the woman I had married, and I was under no obligation to stay married to someone who treated me so badly. When we finally returned to Ireland in September, another Australian family had arrived at the school, and we invited the wife to dinner to get to know them. Her husband could not make the dinner as he was getting up to speed on his new job at the Australian Embassy. At dinner, we explained that we were now leaving Ireland ahead of schedule, but we did not mention that we were getting divorced. We had not told anyone about that yet. She asked us how long we had been in Ireland, and I replied just under 2 years, that we had arrived in February 2001 and would be leaving prior to our 2-year visas expiring. And then she said the words that would change our lives forever. She said, "But why not stay on and get Irish citizenship? That would be such a great opportunity for your children." As it turned out, the legislation in Australia had been quietly changed in April 2002, such that Australian citizens could apply for a second citizenship without having to renounce their Australian citizenship. She knew this because her husband worked at the Australian Embassy. This was all a complete fluke. Well, Jennifer seized the opportunity, seized it. Instead of begging me to take her back, which was an obvious failure, she began begging me to give the children the chance at Irish citizenship because they would then be able to live and work in any EU country, and the citizenship would also go on to their children as well. Jennifer packaged this begging into, "It is in the best interests of your children if we stay married until at least we all have citizenship. You can divorce me once we have citizenship." That's what the new package was. I said no on the grounds that Jennifer was wasting money hand over fist, and she had refused to work and help me earn money for our family for 8 years now. I told her that the stress and strain of being the sole income earner was too much, and that I still wanted to divorce and be rid of her and her money-wasting ways while refusing to work to help me. Of course, there then followed more begging and more promises about how she would help me in our company and help me in my work to pay her way. I told her that the only way I would agree to allowing her to stay was that we split the asset of the house 50-50 at this time, and I would allocate money from the business as her salary based on the work she actually did. More promises and begging followed. I also pointed out that she had done very well to be given half the house since she had actually refused to pay for it. I pointed out that 50-50 was more than generous, and she agreed, and this was 2002, remember. She promised over and over again to work, but she didn't, so I told her that I would deduct her expenses, and her expenses only, from her asset of the house. I said I was happy to pay for all the expenses of the children, even if she would not contribute to them financially, but if she was not willing to work, for her direct expenses would come out of her half of the house. The children were now 9 and 11, and they were not that much effort at all. They pretty much looked after themselves much of the time. It was not like she had 4 children in the house, including 2 small ones, as we had 10 years previously. Jennifer agreed to this arrangement. I then said to her words to the effect, "Now I want to make this clear. You signed a mortgage contract to pay for our house, and then claimed because you never said you would pay the contract, you didn't have to work to pay the mortgage. You will remember that was your excuse. Now, you are saying you have accepted that you have taken half of the house as an asset, and you have accepted that you will pay for your expenses from your work or your half of the house. Are you giving me your word, your oath, that you accept this?" She put her hand on her heart and said, I know you do not trust me to even sign a contract, but yes, my word, my oath on my mother's grave is that I accept your generous offer of half the house. I did not deserve it, and I know it, and I will work and pay for myself out of this. I will work or pay for myself out of this half of the house. If I do not work enough, I promise you this. Okay, that's what she said, hand on heart. On my mother's grave, I promise to work, and if I don't, you take the money out of my half of the house. I looked at her and said, "I'm taking a big personal risk, taking your word on this. Do we need to write this down and have you sign that you have done this, or are you really going to live up to your word on this one?" More promises that this time she absolutely understood that she was giving her word not to attack me in the divorce courts when we finally divorced, and she would just take what was left and go quietly when we finally divorced. We were both clear that we were staying married and going to try for Irish citizenship for the benefit of the children, and then their children too. Citizenship would even allow Jennifer's older children to be given permanent residency in Ireland, so this was a very big deal. The other issue was that 9/11 had slowed down the global economy badly, and Europe was heading into recession in October 2002. So there was also the worry of how to make enough money to stay for the next 3 years. So, my dear ladies, Jennifer swore an oath on her mother's grave that she would not attack me in the divorce courts when we finally divorced. She swore an oath that she would take what was given her in 2002 because it was more than generous, seeing how she refused to work to pay for the house she was going to be given 50% of the proceeds of. Over the next 5 years, I spent most of my time away working to keep up with paying the bills for the whole family. I knew that after I divorced Jennifer, I would be able to make a good living. I also worked on developing software that I would be able to sell after I divorced Jennifer. My future was quite secure for the very reason I had been working so hard for so long. Most days were 12 to 15-hour days, and I worked 13 days a fortnight while I was away from home. The children missed out on my time quite a bit, but that situation was better than not seeing them at all, which was likely in a divorce anyway. We kept the fact that we had decided to divorce after we got our citizenship to ourselves. In December 2005, a family emergency happened. Jennifer's eldest son, Jared, was diagnosed with cancer, with an advanced case of cancer, and he was given just a 50-50 chance to live. I immediately sent Jennifer and the small children to Sydney to be by Jared's side at the hospital. We were now low on cash due to Jennifer's reckless spending. Her reckless spending may have very well been her stealing money from the family finances, knowing that we were going to divorce. We have not gotten to the bottom of that yet to determine if Jennifer was stealing money and saying she was spending it on the children. Because we were still married, I asked my brother, a doctor at Royal North Shore Hospital in Sydney, if he could use any possible favours or influence he had to get Jared in to see the best possible cancer specialist. He agreed, and Jared was able to jump the queue, so to speak, and become the patient of the leading cancer specialist in the country for the specific situation he was in. His chances were assessed as so bad that it was recommended to Jennifer and I that he be given an experimental treatment that had never been used in Australia before. The next 2 such patients died, so you, dear reader and listener, can understand the severity of the situation. That my brother was able and willing to get Jared the best care possible in the country contributed to saving his life. It was also the case that I called Jared when he wanted to quit and die and instilled in him the desire to fight for his own life, and he admits that publicly. During this time, Jennifer somehow got into her own head that we would remain married in the future, perhaps because of the stress of the situation. She mentioned something about being married in the future, and I told her that I had no intentions of remaining married to her longer than I had to be, and that I would divorce her as soon as the whole citizenship issue was settled. She took this to be me telling her I was going to divorce her while Jared was ill. I told her that if she wanted to be married to me, she would have to totally transform the woman she had become and return to being the woman I fell in love with. It's pretty simple. I advised her to get counselling from the woman I mentioned above, the one who I invited to the forum and who went on to remain married and have children. That woman worked not far from the hospital, and she was willing to make herself available to Jennifer for counselling because I had helped her and her husband in their time of need without even knowing they were in need. That woman counselled Jennifer to be the woman that I wanted, since that is the woman that I had married and loved. It's not complicated, right? I fell in love with and married a woman a certain way. That woman disappeared and a shrew came up, and the woman who counselled her said, "You're a shrew, stop treating Peter badly, treat him like you treated him in your courting days and you'll stay married." It's very simple. After Jared was out of risk of cancer, Jennifer returned to Ireland, and Jared came along to spend some time with us just to recover from his ordeal. One time when I was home, Jennifer said words to the effect, this is kind of what she said. She said, "I have made a terrible mistake with you. Indeed, many terrible mistakes. I've treated you very poorly for years and years, and now you want to divorce me. But what I saw with your support of Jared and our family, you are simply the best man I could ever hope to marry. There are no other men better than you. Your love for my children, your love for our children, your willingness to sacrifice your own health and well-being to work so hard for us all and to support the family like you did in this crisis. There are no words to describe what you did for us. You are," and she said this, "you are my hero, you are my Samson. You saved Jared's life. I want more than anything to be your wife for the rest of my life. No one will ever love me like you do. No one will ever love our children like you do. No one will ever work so hard and do so much for our family as you have already done. I'm begging you, please, please take me back. Please, I will do anything you ask. You name it, I will do it for the rest of my life if it means I get to be married to you." That's what she said to me. After she came back and she realised what I'd done with Jared, this is how she was speaking to me. And I said, no, I did not believe her and did not want to be married to her. I told her that she had lied to me enough times. I was fed up with her. I told her that I loved her, but her many broken promises, which is too much for me to stand, and her reckless spending would impoverish us in our old age. No deal. That's what I told her. No deal. She kept begging, and in the end I said, look, you have everything you need to be the wife of my dreams, except you are a vicious and cruel woman. This shrew that you are now, I loathe and detest. I most intensely dislike who you are now. I would never have married you or had children with you if I had any idea this is what you were really like. You lied to me and deceived me for many years as to your true nature. You have betrayed my trust in you time and time again. And I said, there's only one place I know where you can transform who you are into the woman of my dreams, and that is at Landmark Education. I recommend you go to London and do that again and take a very long, hard look at who you are, because who you are, no man would want you. After I divorce you, you might want to marry again, and you can't marry any man the way you are. If you truly, truly choose to be the woman that I married, I would stay married to you, but I see no chance at all of that happening, not even at Landmark, but you are welcome to try. That's what I said to her. So she duly went to Landmark Education again and did the forum again in May 2007. As she shared her story with one of the attendees, he said to her, this is just the person sitting next to her in a seat, doesn't know her from Adam, they don't know each other from Adam or Eve, right? He said to her, wow, your husband must love you to death. And Jennifer asked him why he would say that, and he said, because you, my dear, are one hate-filled total bitch. That's what she said, he said to her. She told me that on the telephone. Apparently this really hit home. She realised that when she had shared her side of the story, anyone could see that she was a cruel, hate-filled woman, that she had been merciless in her tormenting of her husband for many years, and that she would have to totally transform herself to win me back or to win any man's heart ever again. So after this guy said this to her, Jennifer called me and asked me again if I would consider taking her back, now knowing full well that she had become so horrible to me. Again, I told her no. She asked if I would accept an email from her expressing her feelings towards me, and I told her that she was welcome to send me such an email. So, my dear reader and listener, here is that email, her spelling mistakes and all, but just before I dictate it into this video, we'll take a short word from one of our sponsors. And thank you very much for returning. Where we were up to was I was about to read the letter that Jennifer sent me in May 2007, begging me to take her back. I think this was the 5th time, something like that. Dearest Peter, as you know, I came to the forum to have a breakthrough in my relationship with you. As people have gotten up to speak, I have seen aspects of my way of being reflected in their stories. As I listened, the possibility has dawned on me that while I have complained of being bullied by you, I have actually been the bully. I have been so stubborn as to make our marriage unworkable. I have resisted nearly everything you suggested, all to show you that you are not the boss of me. I guess after all these years and divorce on the table, it should be pretty clear to both of us that that's the case. The possibility I have invented for myself and my life is the possibility of head over heels love, passionate, compassionate, generous, and unstoppable. I have also taken on the possibility of abundance. Years ago, you asked me to create a relationship and invite you to be enrolled in it. Last night, I finally did that. I don't blame you for being cynical about that invitation. A less persistent man would have divorced me years ago. You are the Samson that holds up the roof of the world over me and our family. I have been Delilah, pretending to love you while undermining your strength. I am so sorry for that. I realize that for us to have the relationship of my possibility, I will have to give up making you wrong. I am committed to having this possibility in my life. I will have head over heels love with someone, and you are my first choice. I know you feel the relationship with our children is secondary, and I have always made you wrong for that. I want our relationship to be complete, freeing you to be a father to them. Will you be their father? No amount of mother love can compensate them for the loss of you. I am also standing in the possibility of our children attending the teen forum. I see how I have enrolled them in my stories about you to their detriment. That means child abuse. I want them to have the loving relationship with you I know is possible. Now I have created a possibility for my life. Do you think it is one I might enroll you in? I invite you to share a life with me more wonderful than we could ever have apart. My offer to you is nothing less than myself, utterly, totally, and completely. With all my love, Jenny. Those are her words, written in her hand, with her spelling mistakes included. That was the letter. My answer was no. I told her that I did not believe her and that she had been given more than enough opportunities in the 18 years we had been married. I told her that I had already taken my wedding ring off in February and I considered myself no longer married to her. I told her that I was just going through the motions and keeping this quiet until such time as the citizenship question was resolved, which would be relatively soon now. This was May 2007, and we had applied for in February 2006 for citizenship, so we were hoping for a result by February 2008. The department that processed citizenship applications was on a go-slow strike, and rather than 6 months, which was the normal processing time, they were now taking 2 years. Bad luck for those people who were inconveniencing, right? I actually had to take my case to the Irish ambassador in Australia to get another visa to remain in Ireland because there was no process to grant further visas because the citizenship question should have been settled. I continue to be persecuted by the Irish government, despite the fact that all members of Parliament are aware of this persecution. As per usual, Jennifer begged some more and made some more promises that I presumed were empty promises. I was working in Germany at the time, and so she begged me to allow her to come to Germany and talk to me face to face. I agreed, and Jared cared for the younger children. When she was in Germany, she did the usual begging and pleading and promising, and I told her no. I did not want to be married to her one more day than I had to be. I told her that she had broken her word to me so many times that I simply did not trust her. I told her that she might be nice to me for 6 months or 12 months, but I did not believe that in her heart she had decided to be the woman that I had married. I didn't see it. In that trip and on phone calls, she had said a number of times, "When we finally get divorced, I'm going to take you for everything you have." Each time she said that, I pointed out that she had given me her solemn oath on her mother's grave that she would accept the deal we did in 2002. She became very irritable whenever I pointed that out to her, even going to the extent, "Well, my mother is not dead yet, so maybe I do not have to keep that oath." She actually said that. Okay, you women say, "Well, I'm upset that you think we women don't have integrity." This woman said, "I give you this oath on my mother's grave," and later said, "Well, my mother is not dead yet, so maybe I do not have to keep that oath." That's what integrity is for women, okay? I pointed out that we had had the conversation very clearly and very openly, that the only way she got to stay and attempt to get Irish citizenship, which she duly got, by the way, and I did not so far, was based on that agreement. I told her that if she broke that agreement, I would tell her children what a lying bitch she was, and she could deal with that fallout, and she could deal with the fallout from that. So I said to her, if you do this, I'm going to tell your children you lied right through this situation to me in order to get stuff for them. I'm going to tell your children that, I said to her. She kept on saying, when we finally divorce, I'm going to take you for everything you have, so often that I decided to put her to the test. I went home in August 2007 and put it to her that I no longer believed she would keep her oath, and I wanted her to write down her oath on paper and sign it and date it. That's what I asked her. Write down what you said, sign it and date it. I told her that if she was not willing to put on paper the oath she had made, that I would consider that our marriage was over right now and I would divorce her now, no matter what it took. I also put a keyboard logger on the computer so that I could pick up her password for her email account. Jennifer refused point blank to put her oath on paper. So I said, I presume that you are talking to a divorce lawyer in Ireland, and I presume you are going to break your oath and you're going to try and steal from me what you said you would not take via the avenue of divorce courts. I will tell you this, I will not act against you. I want an amicable and private divorce. I am happy to say irreconcilable differences and smile and move on. No one has to know what a bitch you have been to me. If I make public what a bitch you have been to me, no man will have you. If you act against me, I will consider that a hostile act and I will fight you to the bitter end, whatever that might be. So I would recommend you consider what you do very carefully. She had used her Hotmail and I was able to retrieve her password. I flew back to Germany on the Monday morning to return to work, very, very upset and disappointed that Jennifer was willing to break her oath to me, and I wondered how this would be taken by the children should they ever find out. As it turns out, Western women who break their oaths are forgiven this appalling behaviour and indeed supported in it. Very unattractive, ladies. From Germany, I kept an eye on Jennifer's email. I could not believe what I was seeing. She was talking to lawyers in both Australia and Ireland. That Monday, she went to the bank and stole 18,000 euros from our company account. Apparently, my dear reader and listener, when a woman embezzles 18,000 euros from their company, that too is forgiven if you are a woman. How do you women think it is possible to trust you when you also condone and support embezzlement and stealing? Really, what are you thinking? So Jennifer was even lying to her lawyers. She claimed to both sets of lawyers that I asked her to sign a contract to sign over 50% of the assets of the house, whereas what I had asked her to do was to write down on paper the verbal oath she had made in 2002 and sign it and date it. I could not believe the coldness and the callousness with which she described me in these emails. I was the man who had saved her son's life, and she talked about me as if I was a complete bastard and a total stranger. So at that time, I thought it was a good idea to play some mind games with her and troll her for a bit, just to see how devious this woman really was. I decided to tell her that I had a change of heart and that I might reconsider staying married to her and see what she did with that. Okay, that's what I decided to do. Over the next 8 weeks in August and September 2007, I sent her emails opening up the possibility of remaining married as she had been begging for. I was asking her if she was writing to lawyers while I was watching her emails between her lawyers. She was flatly denying that she was writing to lawyers, flatly denying it. Yet, here were the emails right in front of me. While she was writing to me, professing her love for me and her desire to remain married, she was preparing affidavits and talking of me to the lawyers like I was some monster. In September, we agreed that she should come to Germany and spend some time with me to show me that she was genuine in wanting to be married to me, to show me she really had changed for the better. Of course, I knew that she was writing to the lawyers and she did not know that I knew that. One of her lawyers told her that she should not come over because it would be hard to make the case that I was such a bad husband when she was voluntarily going to come and stay with me. She advised Jennifer to ask me for a letter to say that she was coming to see me. That she was coming to see me did not mean that she agreed to remain married to me or some such thing. How laughable is that? So I wrote the letter knowing that Fiona Brazel, her lawyer in Ireland, had advised her to get it. When Jennifer came over, she tried very hard to be the kind of woman she was when she was younger. She made all sorts of promises and begged many times over, yet again. Towards the end of the week she asked me if I felt I might want to be married to her now she had behaved better towards me. I will never forget it. I'll never forget this. I told her that I thought she was lying to me. I told her that I thought she was talking to lawyers and that this week was just one more lie and one more attempt to get me to change my mind to salvage the situation for herself, and it was not about loving me or caring about me at all. That's what I told her, and I knew it was true. She flipped. How dare I call her a liar? How dare I insinuate she is talking to lawyers when she'd given me her word that she would not do that? And she did this while I knew for a fact she was talking to the lawyers. It was quite a display she put on. She was offended and indignant that I would not believe that she was not talking to lawyers. What a show she put on. I was sitting there listening to her and watching her, thinking to myself, this woman I have known for 32 years is lying to my face, and she is not showing the slightest signs of concern or remorse or anything that might be associated with lying. She is lying and she is pulling it off perfectly. Wow. And I was sitting there thinking this, wow. And I was thinking, I wonder how many things she has lied to my face about and pulled off perfectly. It was dawning on me that Jennifer was a pathological liar. Someone who can lie so well that they give absolutely no outward signs they are lying. Very unattractive. My ploy of hanging out the bait of possibly changing my mind and remaining married to her had worked far better than I imagined. Jennifer had taken the bait hook, line and sinker. She had come here and lied her pretty little head off, trying to secure money for her own future. Wow. Just wow. She was going to pretend to love me long enough to get her claws back into me. Again, wow. Just wow. So at the end of the week, I took her back to the airport and put her on the plane back home and considered my next move. I kept watching her emails. The way she described the time to her lawyers with such coldness and lack of feeling was truly scary. She had been throwing herself at me, making all sorts of empty promises on how she would be a good wife if only I gave her another chance. And yet in these emails to her lawyers, she was cold beyond frigid. This was the woman I had been married to. It was a very, very depressing thought. I then gave Jennifer an ultimatum. I made 4 offers to see how she would react. Offer 1 was to take her back, all sins forgiven, but to do that she would have to sign over all property to me and I would manage the family finances to make sure we retired in comfort with enough money for both of us. That is, reinstate her full status as my wife and all that goes with that. Of course, I was not going to do it, but I wanted to see what she would say. Offer 2 was, I would give her half the proceeds of the house. She could stay on as my wife, but I would never trust her again with anything important, and she could not work in my company because she had stolen money and was unrepentant about doing so. Option 3 was we would divorce amicably, say irreconcilable differences, and say nothing of her terrible behaviour for so many years. Let the next man beware. In this deal, we would divorce under the Australian legislation, since that is where we live the majority of our lives. And option 4 was she could attack me in the Irish courts, which I would take as her starting an unwanted war against me, and I would fight her until the bitter end. I gave her until October the 15th, just after her birthday, to make her choice of the 4 options. I was curious to see what she would do. She passed these options to her lawyers, and talked over them with her lawyers. Finally, the day came, the 15th of October 2007. I had no intentions of ever taking her back, but she swallowed the bait so thoroughly I was actually having a pretty good time of it by now. She had realised that there was not much money available because of her reckless spending, and she had realised that finding some other sucker to buy the bad deal she was offering was not going to be easy. Little did I know that she had been sleeping with some other guy already, and likely for quite a long time. She called me up and I asked her which option she had chosen. She flew into a rage and spoke to me in language that would not have been out of place in a coal mine or a wharf. She swore at me and called me all sorts of names. Then she blurted out, "I'm going to take the whole house and I'm going to get 50% of your software revenue too." I had had enough. I yelled at her that she did not write one line of code of the now 80,000 lines of code in my software, and to imagine that she was entitled to 1 cent of the proceeds of the 2,000 plus hours I had laboured on that software made her a low-down, conniving bitch and a gold digger to boot, which is what I told her. I told her that any option of remaining married to me was off the table for such a comment. I then told Jennifer, "You make up your mind right now. You can be divorced amicably, or I will tell anyone and everyone who will listen just what a gold-digging bitch you are. You will never have another man in your life. If I publish what you have done, never. Your only chance to get another husband is for me to cooperate and to never talk about what you have done. So you tell me right now, option 3 or option 4, I can do either, you know that of me." She settled down and went for option 3, or so she claimed. Of course, she lied again, and there's nothing unusual about that, right? So Jennifer went from writing that letter you just read or listened to in May 2007, begging me to take her back, throwing herself at me, taking full responsibility for making our marriage impossible, to lying under oath and claiming me to be a bad husband on her affidavit submitted to the court on November the 9th, 2007. Which one sounds more believable, really? Dear ladies, it is quite fine by me that Jennifer did these things. She is a pathological liar, she is a gold digger, she also turned out to be an adulteress, a prostitute, a criminal and a child abuser. She committed the crimes of perjury, kidnapping, extortion, theft and child abuse in the period of divorce. Those things are all fine. Okay, she did that, she will be held responsible for that. Those things are fine. What is not fine, ladies, what is not fine is the fact that 99.9% plus of women in the West and 99% plus of men in the West, by the way, of the people around her in particular, supported her. What is not fine is that 100% of the members of the Irish and Australian parliaments know that these crimes took place and support Jennifer and support the notion that these crimes should stand. What is not fine is that my honour and my integrity has not been respected by 99.9% plus of Western women who have seen my case and 99% plus of men who have seen my case. My honour and my integrity has not been respected. That's the purpose of this lesson. Show respect for honest men of honour and integrity. And I have not been shown my due respect. The point of this whole lesson is this. Honour and integrity are very important characteristics in men. We value these characteristics very highly because they are so hard to maintain over extended periods of time. For me to be able to make the true statement that I am an honest man of honour and integrity and to have lived up to those characteristics for my entire adult life as best I could is important for me because it marks me as a much better man than the vast majority of men. Most men are not honest men of honour and integrity, and I know that. For those of us who are honest men of honour and integrity, we demand, not ask for, we demand to be shown the respect we have earned, and if due respect is not forthcoming, then we have the right to show no respect to any person who does not show us our earned and due respect. So the point of the lesson is this: dear reader or dear listener, if you want a good husband, if you want a husband who is an honest man of honour and integrity, then you are well advised to show the respect such men have earned openly and publicly. For if you do not, those men who are honest men of honour and integrity will notice your lack of respect, and they will find you very unattractive as potential wives. If you are already married and you do not show honest men of honour and integrity the respect they have earned, you can bet your bottom dollar your husband has noticed this and realizes that you do not really respect him either. And he will realize that you would condone and support committing the same actions as Jennifer committed against me, against him. This will give your husband some cause for pause and thought. If you want your husband to trust you, then you must show due respect to all honest men of honour and integrity. If you want to know how to act to your husband to be a good wife, do exactly the opposite of everything I just described that Jennifer did. You want to know how to be a good wife? Do exactly the opposite of Jennifer. This is the lesson for today. I hope you enjoyed listening or reading. Thanks for listening.